Hello and welcome to the channel. In this video, I'll be doing some micro reviews and giving my thoughts and opinions on the stacks of Sonic news and content that we've had from our Blue Boy in recent months. If you've been subbed for a while, you may have noticed a bit of a reduction in the video output of late. Sorry about this. It's simply due to the day job being so insanely busy of late that there literally hasn't been enough hours in the day to record and edit the levels of content that I want to be putting out. I really do plan to get back to almost weekly uploads eventually if I can, but I can't do that just yet. So this jumbo review video will encompass everything I haven't yet covered in the last 2 or 3 months that I consider newsworthy or worth discussing. And I'll timestamp everything that I cover in this video in the comments, so if you're looking for something specific, or if you want to skip parts that maybe don't interest you, you can do just that. Before we get into it, please hit that like button as it helps me out a lot, and subscribe if you're new here. The higher the subs and views, the higher the extremely unlikely possibility that one day I'll be able to ditch the day job and just make videos for this channel all day, every day. Anyway, I've got a lot to cover: games, shows, movies, merch and more, so let's get into it. Right, first things first. I've got to do a quick stop the press here and re-record 2 parts of this video right now to cover the new Sonic reveals at Gamescom 2023. This event has superseded parts of the script I'd already recorded for this video, so here's a re-recorded section. Sonic Frontiers. I really enjoyed Sonic Frontiers when it launched in November 2022. You can find a link to my original review of it in the description below, and probably on screen somewhere if I can figure out how to do that. Despite some flaws, I'd still consider it to be one of the best 3D Sonic games in a very long time. And since its launch, Sega have rolled out a series of bug fixes and quality of life improvements, alongside, at the time of writing, 2 out of 3 free DLC updates for the game. The team are clearly listening to constructive fan feedback and striving to make this game the best it can be. My original plan for this video was to heap praise on everything Sonic Team had added to the game so far, whether referring to additional DLC content, general improvements to gameplay, the unlockable spin dash, further customization options, or the very welcome option to remove the high-pass audio filter when boosting. But forget all of that. My biggest criticism for Sonic Frontiers was its massively disappointing ending, which saw Sonic take on what must have been one of the laziest, rushed final bosses in the entire series history. You know, in fact, I'm going to say it was the laziest boss in any Sonic game, and that is both in terms of enemy design and gameplay. Well, thankfully, following the reveal of the teaser trailer for Sonic Frontiers DLC 3, the long-awaited story DLC, the final act of the game looks like it will be getting a complete do-over. I would assume, based on the trailer. It looks like the new events of this story will pick up at the current point-of-no-return save point before the current final boss, and will then switch out that battle against the End for a different series of events entirely. I've got to say, the trailer is, to me, one of the most exciting teasers I have ever seen from a Sonic game. Ever. It not only shows our Blue Boy facing off against one last massive titan as Super Sonic, but for the first time in the series since Sonic 3 and Knuckles in 1994, it looks like we're getting a new super form. Some sort of cyber Super Sonic with cyan eyes. Not to mention playable 3D Tails, Knuckles and Amy for the first time since, I want to say 2006? Exciting stuff. Sonic Frontiers, The Final Horizon, drops in September 2023, and I can't wait. If you've been following this channel for a while, you may know that I've been obsessed with the Blue Boy from the very beginning, back in 1991. In fact, I'll post a link to my Sonic Fan origin story video, one of the better videos on this channel I feel, in the description below, and probably on screen now if I can figure out how. I love many Sonic games, both 2D and 3D, old and new, but if you asked me what I felt was objectively the best Sonic game ever made, I'd have to go with Sonic Mania. The amount of love, attention to detail, and overall polish that went into that game is staggering. a true follow-up to classic 2D Sonic that faithfully recreated the look and feel of the classic games whilst modernizing them and improving them in almost every way. A masterpiece. It's my love for Sonic Mania that initially made me a little apprehensive for Sega's upcoming 2D Sonic release, Sonic Superstars. On paper, I love the idea. A modern, classic 2D Sonic game with couch co-op mode, and the return of Knack the Weasel or Fang the Sniper, depending on your territory, who's been absent from the series for far too long. Not to mention the return of Origin's playable Amy Rose, and some brand new characters from original designer Naoto Oshima. I guess for me, I was a little skeptical when I learned that the team behind Sonic Mania wouldn't be involved in Sonic Superstars. Like, why? They did a brilliant job. It seems like such an obvious move, but then I guess Sonic Mania 2 seemed like an obvious move, and that didn't end up happening for baffling reasons. When it was first revealed, it was assumed Sonic Team were developing the game, who, despite doing a good job with Frontiers, had hardly smashed it out of the park with Sonic Origins. It felt like Sega was cheaping out with an in-house team rather than using the recent real-life Sonic superstars, including Christian Whitehead, T-Lopes, Tyson Hess, etc. The group responsible for putting out the best Sonic title possibly ever. And as nice as Superstars looked, I was honestly getting flashbacks to Sonic 4 and imagining the physics being all out of whack again. Well, with each subsequent trailer and bit of news that has dropped regarding this release, those fears have been truly crushed. I am all on board with the Sonic Superstars hype train. From what we've heard, physics are more or less one-to-one with Sonic Mania, and it looks absolutely stunning. And there are also some really nice nods to the series history here, such as the inclusion of Sonic's prototype rabbit design skin and the return of Flickies. Sure, there are some parts of the game which I'm not quite sure what to make of yet, such as the weird sections we've seen with the characters turning into jellyfish and rockets in a pixel style. Not to mention the $59.99 base price and $69.99 deluxe price, which seem to me to be a bit on the very steep side, but whatever. I'm hype AF for this one too. Wow, I am not having much luck with this video at all, because I've just sat down to edit my Sonic Origins Plus review section, and out of nowhere, Sega have dropped an unexpected but very welcome patch for the game. Looking through the notes, it seems to fix a bunch of different bugs. It also adds nearest neighbor filtering, which gives a sharper picture, which was one of my criticisms for the game. So anyway, I'm going to go through the review and edit it, and anything they fixed in the patch, I will remove, but anything that's still relevant, I will keep in. Here is my review of Sonic Origins Plus. Back in June of 2023, classic 2D compilation title Sonic Origins got an update and physical release in the form of Sonic Origins Plus. When I reviewed the base game back in the summer of 2022, link in the comments and probably on screen somewhere, I generally liked it, but it was more down to the strengths of the original games rather than the ports, which were passable in most areas, but sloppy in others. For example, the drop dashes and spin dashes didn't work properly in Sonic 1 and 2, and the music in Sonic 3 and Knuckles was kind of muffled. The visuals on the collections were also blurrier when compared with the likes of Sonic Mania, due to the odd decision not to use nearest neighbor scaled image, a term I have admittedly only recently learned while researching this video. There were also some sprite layering issues, some levels with blocked pathways, and a plethora of other minor issues that stacked up to make a rather sloppy end product. So first of all, did Plus and its free patch for non-Plus players address these issues? Some of them. The drop dash and spin dashes were fixed for Sonic 1 and 2, meaning some areas that were inaccessible in the original release are now accessible again. For example, at the beginning of Spring Yard Zone Act 1, this ledge that you couldn't get up to in the original Sonic Origins. So that's good, but to be honest though, I find it staggering that they left this issue for an entire year rather than rolling out a fix early on. Just bizarre behavior. Outside of this, there were some bug fixes that I noticed. Some incorrectly named audio tracks in the museum area were fixed too, but unfortunately some of the sprite layering issues remain, as do a few blocked pathways here and there. And Sonic 3 and Knuckles audio is still muffled too. so I'd say a bare minimum of fixes were carried out. But that's the base game. You can have that update for free, and it is still welcome. But what about the extras for those of us who forked out for the Plus DLC? Deep down, when I heard about this DLC, I was hoping for the inclusion of Knuckles Chaotix, or at the very least the Mega Drive or Genesis versions of Sonic 3D and Sonic Spinball, the latter two of which are both games represented in the island menus on the base game. I was also hoping that the Sonic 3 and Knuckles original soundtrack would return too, due to classic music being mentioned in the promo material for Plus, although admittedly I thought it was unlikely. Unfortunately, we didn't get any of this. Just 12 Game Gear ports of handheld Sonic games of varying quality. Presumably because these have been included in Sonic games in the past, so this was just easy to flop them onto Origins Plus with minimal effort. Their performance is all over the place, and it's a real shame that they didn't use the Master System versions where available to allow for more space on screen. You really can't see very far ahead in some of these at all. But I guess that was more effort than Sega was willing to put in. The highlight of this collection, though, is that Amy Rose is finally a playable character in the classic Sonic games. And I really like her inclusion here. Unlike Mighty and Ray before her, she comes with a unique moveset that sets her apart from the other characters. Tapping jump again while she's already in the air will see Amy use her hammer to extend the reach of her spin attack, particularly useful against bosses and Orbonauts, while tapping and holding jump again while you're in the air will give you Amy's version of the drop dash, where she basically runs across the ground swinging her Pico Pico, kind of like that scene in the Punisher Netflix show where Frank Castle goes nuts and smashes up some baddies with a sledgehammer. For me, the inclusion of Amy made the Plus DLC a worthwhile purchase, and it's great that she's finally able to turn the Core 3, or Sonic, Tails and Knuckles, into the Core 4. Her appearance in the game's cutscenes a year earlier suggests to me that she was always supposed to be playable, and that her delay to be included in a paid DLC a year later was always designed to be a scheme to squeeze a few more quid from old Muggins here. It worked though, didn't it? It'll always work. Overall, Sonic Origins Plus was passable. I haven't talked about Netflix's Sonic Prime yet on this channel, and that's because I plan to do a big review when all 3 seasons have dropped. I will say though that I think it's one of the best Sonic series we've gotten so far. For me, it's currently tied with Japanese Sonic X for the top spot, but we'll see who gets the crown for my best Sonic show when all episodes have aired. But for now, I will say that I love the animation and overall look of the show. It's very cinematic at times, particularly the stuff set in New York City, and this is both visually and in its music score. The fight scenes are fast and fluid and well directed, the characters have depth, and the performances from the actors are excellent. It really feels like a lot of love went into this show. I particularly enjoyed the dynamic between Sonic and Shadow, and generally, I feel, for a supposedly mainline canon Sonic show, the characters' personalities are pretty consistent with that of the game. One character who is a little off though, I'd say, is Sonic, who comes across as quite bumbling and inexperienced at times, and he makes quite a lot of mistakes and gets his ass kicked frequently. I'm sure this is a narrative decision so we can see him grow throughout the show, but it seems a little odd if this is the mainline Sonic we've known for the last 30-something years. Speaking of Sonic, his voice actor, Devin Mack, is really good, and seems to be drawing influence from a whole host of Sonic voices, both past and present. And this definitely includes some Ben Schwartz movie Sonic sprinkled in there too. The first time I can think of that Sonic spilling out from the movies into other media. In terms of plot, I like the now overused multiverse concept of this show, but I can't help but imagine how cool it would have been if Sonic was hopping across SatAM, Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic Underground, Archie, Boom and Fleetway universes, rather than generic Pirate World, Jungle World, etc. I'm sure this crossed the writers' minds, but I bet it would have been a licensing nightmare, so I understand why they didn't do it. Tonally, it takes itself quite seriously without entering cringe territory, and there are funny moments too. Sure, sometimes gags fall flat, probably as this is a children's show and I'm a grown man, but overall, I think they found a good balance between the serious and the goofy. Speaking of which, I should mention the series villains, the Chaos Council. The series hasn't finished yet, so I don't know the full story, but these 5 seem to have come into being when Sonic shattered the Chaos Prism, and I guess they're meant to represent different parts of Eggman's personality? Like he got split apart when the crystal did? I don't know. But I quite like these guys. The downside to it is that Eggman himself, who I thought was great at the beginning of the series, is absent for the rest of the show. At least up until the end of Season 2. Anyway, I'm currently enjoying Prime a fair bit, and I'm looking forward to the final batch of episodes. As soon as they're out, I'll put together a full Sonic Prime review. It's no secret that I'm a big fan of the Sonic Cinematic Universe. It's a fresh Sonic universe all of its own, with its own canon not bogged down with the inconsistent and confusing lore of the games. Awesome! Although the current writer and actor strikes will undoubtedly delay the third movie, the team currently shooting Sonic 3 are making good use of the downtime by filming the CGI or non-human scenes while they don't have access to the actors. Could this result in the third film focusing a lot more on Sonic and the gang and less on the humans? Maybe. I hope so. Anyway, one aspect of the SCU that appears to be unaffected by the strikes is the Knuckles spin-off series, coming to Paramount Plus this autumn, or fall if you're an American. This is because it wrapped filming before all of these strikes kicked off. Going into this series, I was hoping for, but not expecting, some sort of prequel which would hopefully see a pre-Earth residing Knuckles traveling through familiar zones from the games and maybe meeting other characters such as Chaotix. Maybe we'll still get this, but it's sounding less likely given the recent updates we've had on the series. Here's a summary taken from Variety. In addition to Elba reprising the role of Knuckles from Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Variety has learned that Adam Pally is set to star in the series, once again playing the role of Wade Whipple from the film franchise. The film takes place between the events of Sonic the Hedgehog 2 and Sonic the Hedgehog 3, which is slated to hit theaters December 20th, 2024. In the series, Knuckles, quote, agrees to trade Wayne as his protege and teach him the ways of the Echidna warrior, per the official logline. So, on the surface it's not sounding anything like what I'd hoped for, but that doesn't mean we won't see flashbacks to before Knuckles arrived on Earth. I'm very excited for it, whatever it ends up being. The team behind the movies haven't put a foot wrong if you ask me, and I love Adam Pally and the Wade character. I think both the actor and the character are funny as fuck. I have high hopes for this series. There was some casting news on June 14th too, which included Christopher Lloyd in an unspecified role. I know I've said it on this channel before, but Christopher Lloyd has always been my dream casting choice for Gerald Robotnik, even though I feel he's likely too old now. I covered it in my Sonic Movie 3 predictions video, linked below and probably on screen, again if I can figure it out. And when I saw this, I couldn't help but think, could it be? Could Christopher Lloyd be Gerald Robotnik after all? Whoever he ends up being cast as, and whatever they choose to do with the series, I can't wait to see more from the Sonic Cinematic Universe. Oh, and the inclusion of Knuckles' hat from the Sonic OVA movie in the first teaser image of this show was an awesome touch. A class act from the people responsible. And finally, the Sonic Symphony kicks off in September with 2 shows in London, followed by a world tour. All Sonic music, classic and modern, will be represented in the show, and I'll be at the London evening date, so maybe I'll see some of you there. We'll see. Keep an eye on Twitter or leave a comment if you go in and we'll see what happens. I honestly can't wait. Is it even possible to get a circle pit going to open your heart in a seated venue? I don't know, but we'll soon find out. I'll drop a review of the Sonic Symphony on this channel soon after the show. And there we go. Some thoughts, opinions and reviews all condensed into one longer than usual video. I will be posting videos again more frequently as soon as I'm able to. But in the meantime, I want to thank you for bearing with me while non-YouTube day job consumes almost all of my free time. Up next on the channel though, if all goes to plan, is episode 4 of my ongoing series Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, Abridged, Reviewed and Ranked, where I am revisiting every episode of Sonic's most ridiculous TV series. That'll then be followed by some Sonic movie content and a Knuckles Chaotix history and review video, the latter of which I'm especially excited to finally get around to. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for usually frequent evergreen Sonic the Hedgehog and Sega videos, and if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button as it helps me out more than I could possibly put into words. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you next time.